for this next section of training videos with my longtime friend, Kelly Schwartz. Let me first introduce Kelly to you, and then we're going to jump into our first topic. So, Kelly, thank you for joining me over at Mango Voice, even though we go way back.
We do.
Tell us a little bit about you and your experience in dental, and then we'll jump into our first topic.
Well, first of all, thank you, Laura, for you and Mango Voice inviting me. We've been dental consulting, as you know, for like 32 years now. We have consulted personally, meaning gone into the offices of over 850 practices throughout the United States and Canada. And we teach all the awesome practice management things that offices need to overall improve. And we're really excited to help and make a difference in practices.
I love that. And you and I go way back because you have seen me speak before. We've been at events before together, and we have very similar philosophies, except for I'm not a consultant and you are.
Well, yeah, but I learned from the best, and you're one of them.
Well,
Whenever I've heard you lecture, I'm like, she understands it. She gets it. You and I think where we're really on the same page is we focus on the things that move the numbers in the right direction. We don't just talk a lot of fluff. And that's what I really enjoy about working with you.
awesome. Well, then let's get to it. So, because of you and I could go off and talk about 50,000 things in the practice, what I really, really want to talk about in this video is, and I love the title of this, the phone problem every practice has but won't admit. So, I started talking about phones way back when, 20 years ago. This is the, I think, most important piece of technology in the dental office. So, I want to turn it over to you. You talk to dentists all the time. Tell me your thoughts on phones, the importance of phones, and where we might be missing some opportunities.
So I think the number one, which is the simplest to change, if you will, and too many offices take it for granted and they do zero training on it, is something as simple as answering the phone. Just answering the dang phone, right? And when you think about it, I mean, our teenagers answer the phone. And I joke about even Anna answering the phone. Anna is my partner in the sense that everyone knows how to say hello,
Uh,
right?
uh-huh.
Dr. Nelson's office, but they say it in such a blasé way where they're not excited, they're not friendly, they're making a terrible first impression. I joke with Anna all the time. I call her on the business line. She's like, Schwartz Consulting Group, this is Anna. How can I help you? I'm like, hey, it's me. She's like, oh, what? And so many teams, they're busy, they're multitasking, they're very focused, but yet they lose sight of that call coming in to just be friendly, polite, and courteous, right? And that's the basics. I mean, nobody cares about all the other fancy stuff if you're just not polite, friendly, and welcoming when we call.
Right.
That would be my first one. Make sure you
So,
are friendly when they pick up the phone.
so how do you recommend when you're talking to your doctors and your teams to do you hire for that? Do you coach that? Do you train on that? Do you give it to them in their job description? Like, what's the best way to make sure that that's happening?
We coach on it. We talk about attitude, right? In the sense that, I try to teach team. You remember the day, Laura, where they used to say, put a mirror in front of your phone so
Uh-huh.
they can see you smile, right? That's really become kind of antiquated, but and even now I joke and it kind of dates me. I'm like, hey, when you pick up the phone, I want you to imagine that the other person at the other end, if you're friendly, polite, and courteous, is going to give you $100 tip, right? And so just imagine if you answer the phone the right way versus if you don't, you're going to lose business, right? And the annual patient value is around $1,000. So every lost call by not being friendly, polite, courteous, or even picking up the phone is potentially $1,000 lost. So we definitely train that in terms of attitude first, which I know you're big about. And then we help script them about just simply being friendly. I mean, I could call 3 offices right now and they'll be like, thank you for calling Dr. Nelson's office. This is Kelly.
Right.
Or dental office, can I help you? Right. And it's just I just want to pull my hair out.
Right.
And so we talk about some of those types of things to make sure your team are attitude first, scripted second. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right? I can say, Dr. Nelson's office, this is Kelly. How can I help you? And be like Eeyore, right?
Mhm.
Or I could be like, thank you for calling Dr. Nelson's office. This is Kelly. I can help you. How can I make your day? Right? I worked with an office in Dallas years ago that had a real long last name, hard to pronounce. And so we just changed it to, it's a wonderful day at Dr. K. How may I assist you? Little fun things like that, jingles, if you will, can make a difference. So
So before we get into more of the actual phone calls, you said something that I don't want to miss here. So you're talking about how we answer the phone and the attitude answering phones, but how many offices aren't even answering their phones?
you want to know the statistics? It's 68% of the calls in dental practices go unanswered.
Really?
Hey, yeah, 7 out of 10 calls. And it gets worse with bigger practices. So if I've got more providers, right? So imagine, I'm a single doctor practice with 2,000 patients. I might miss 60 to 65%. But if I'm a multi-doctor, 4 hygienist, I've got 4,000, I potentially could miss even more calls. The percentage might be the same, but I could potentially miss way more calls. Then 35% of those practices missing calls, if you will, when they won't leave a message, there's a high percentage. 80% of the callers will hang up without even leaving a voicemail. And 80% of the new patients who reach voicemail never call you back again. They go somewhere else.
That's
Isn't that
crazy.
crazy?
In this day and age with technology, like we're doing this on YouTube, people can watch this anywhere around the world. Like with this technology, how is that even still happening?
Well, I believe if you think about and this is one of the things that I love about the positive changes that dentistry is making with AI. But for example, I work with an awesome doctor with a really great practice, but their office hours are 7 to 3. Well, for a busy parent or person in general, if I can't reach your office at a time that works for me, with the statistics I just gave you, I'm not going to call back. So the availability to answer the phone, then you combine the fact that depending on how you're trained, if I'm a single person or 2-person front desk and I got 2 people walking in and 2 people walking out, I'm going to get that short, busy person answering the phone, or we're going to let it drift off to voicemail and the statistics work against you. So having technology that can answer that phone is really important. We do a little simple thing to try to cut this. We leave a simple message, Laura, when we does go to voicemail. Thank you for calling the office of Dr. Laura Nelson, where we are currently accepting new patients. You've reached us during normal business hours. So I'm giving them a chance at least let the patient know we do take new patients. We don't leave a long voicemail. It's really short and concise. For more information, visit our website or click on, that type of thing. So we're trying to offset that. But the key, we've got to have a way for patients to schedule or to get online. And that's where kind of it ties into, we make sure that on our website we have online scheduling available. I'm a big fan of the tools inside of Dental Intel and Engagement, as I know you are as well. So the ability for me to make an appointment online, if I do go to your website, takes care of my problem. One of the things that I love, like Mango does, I get an alert if a new patient calls, so I can reach out to that patient. I've got some of my offices that we have a key person up front. We give them a little stipend for every call they return within 15 minutes of the time the patient called if it's after hours. So, I might get 3 or 4 calls after hours, but if my front desk calls those patients back and books any, they get a little, hey, at a girl or at a guy, for
There you
trying to
go.
do it.
So one of the things in the title of this was, what's going on with your phones, but we won't admit it. And you just mentioned about 6 things right there.
I'm sorry.
And no, and that's great. That's great because that's part of the reason why many times doctors get coaches or work with someone like you because they're not even obvious of the things that we're missing. So do you still feel like there's this idea, and I've been in this for 20 some years, where the dentist walks by the front office and they know they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. They shouldn't be answering the phone that way. They shouldn't, but they don't know what they should be doing. It's almost like they're oblivious to what's going on this one piece of technology, and that they don't want to admit that they don't know what's going on with their phones, or they think they know what's going on with their phones, but they really don't have full transparency in that.
The first thing I would do if I don't have technology like Mango that measures the calls, missed calls, which I think is fantastic, or any of the phone companies, you gotta measure, right? You gotta know your data. If you don't have that, simply reach out to your phone company and say, hey, can I get a tracker on how many calls I'm missing and what are the hours of the calls that are coming in so I can make sure that I'm available when need be. So train my team on the culture on what to say, and I'd make sure I know my data. And if I'm missing calls, I want to go back to that annual patient value. Every new patient you're losing could be $1,000. And so simple 100 calls, which is not a lot. It's less than 10 a month. You're losing 100 grand in opportunity just by not grabbing that phone call,
Right,
right?
right, for sure. Okay, so now let's talk about you said scripts, and I've been teaching phones for a very long time, and that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up like scripts. But I don't think you mean it so robotic. Talk to me about how a dentist who maybe has a new employee and he wants he or she to be better on the phones. What do you recommend?
So, do you remember when your kids were little? Do you ever teach them how to answer the phone, being polite, right? So start with that simple, right? Here's how we answer the phone. We don't answer dental office. We answer, thanks for calling the office of Dr. Nelson. Or, however we want to develop to make it who you are. Because you're right. I'm not, I use the word scripts, but I don't like to sound robotic, right? Like Disney, remember the old boat ride at Disney?
Yeah.
They had 18 pages of approved variations, so you got the perfect experience. So we talk about the simple experience that we want them to have. Thanks for calling the office, Dr. Nelson. How may I help you? Or thank you for calling the office, Dr. Nelson. This is Kelly. How may I help you? We give them that basics, and then we go from there on how much do we want to cover on the phone. For example, one of the simple things, the first question do you think of most front desk asks, do you have insurance? Which right away puts patient on edge. So I go ahead and get them to make the appointment. How may I help you? Do you have a toothache? Are you looking for cleaning? I'd go ahead and make the appointment. Then at the end, when I've got them with an appointment, as a courtesy, will we be filing insurance on your behalf? Right? I don't screen them by using, hey, do you have insurance? So we develop a script together as a team.
There's a thing I wanna bring up there because I agree with you on that, but my thing is also it's the culture of the practice. So, if we go into huddle in the morning and the first thing we say is, "What insurance do they have?" Or
Right.
if the doctor's like, "We have a new patient scheduled, what insurance do we have?" It flows downhill. Besides, maybe that's not how you ask it in the call, but do you have any thoughts on just that whole because it's one of the first 3 questions we ask is usually, "What kind of insurance do you have?" Right? So, how does that impact the phones and our ability to convert patients if that's culturally how our practice runs?
Well, I think it's something you have to untrain your staff not to ask about the insurance, right? But at the same token, you've got to train them when the patient says, "Do you take my insurance?" Right? And then the staff don't know how to handle that either. So we train them that we do accept most insurances. However, we may not be in network. We have many patients with your insurance, and we'll help you maximize those benefits. But the number one thing I want to ask on that phone call is, would you like to schedule to meet our awesome team, right? Not would you like to call, would you like to make an appointment or, just answer yes or no. I want to lead that conversation, right? So I want to say, Laura, would you like to meet our team and see, how awesome we are? I like to use affirmations when someone calls, and I know I'm putting a bunch of things in here, like when you call the office, you've chose the right place. Our doctor takes great care of you. If we don't take your insurance, yes, we're not in network. We have many patients with this insurance, and I'm sure you'll find it worth the investment. Little affirmations that make people feel like they've called the right place.
They've done it. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a bad attitude. Okay, so you're a numbers person, and we're gonna get into that in future ones, like, I know that you're all about metrics and all of that, but can you talk to me a little bit? Because I get questions a lot from dentists of, "How many people do I need up front answering the phones? How do I know that like, when are most phone calls coming in?" Like, can you give us any metrics, a Kelly Schwartz style of metrics of things to know how to better look at our phones? I mean, you already gave us a crazy statistic on phone calls being missed, but what else should we be looking at?
Well, I could tell you the secret metrics of Kelly, but then I'd have to shoot you, Laura.
Well, we'll put it on YouTube, then you can shoot me and everybody'll know.
That sounds good. So one of the things I like to do is I look at the total number of encounters that our front desk are having both in and out. So total patients seen per day. So there was a time motion study, if you will. I can't quote the source. I apologize. But the average amount of time it takes to deal with the front desk to walk you in, greet you, make you feel comfortable, and to walk you out, what we call FaceTime is 12 minutes, right? So if I take the total number of patients that I'm seeing in any given day, so let's say we're seeing 26 patients, right? So 26 patients times 12 is 312 minutes that I'm face to face with a person, 60 minutes an hour. That's 5.2 patients per hour. I like to use a number where half of my FaceTime, in other words, if I have 6 hours of FaceTime with an employee, I want to have 12 hours of front office time. Does that make sense?
So you're saying then 1.5 employees, I guess.
Correct, at least. So if you took how many patients you see and you're able to see 4 patients walking through the front desk every hour, and I've got 2, well, that gives each person 2 patients per hour, which is more than enough time to answer phones, return calls, insurance, everything that the front desk has to do. So when I'm looking at total encounters and total providers, I'm making sure we have double the staff of the hours needed because
Okay.
front desks are busy, right?
Right.
So if I'm seeing 4 patients an hour, I probably want 2 people up front most of the time.
Okay.
Because some patients are going to take 20 minutes and some are going to take 5. I mean, if you're coming in for a cleaning, it's like, hi, Laura, how are you? Good to see you. Have a seat. I'll let the team know you're here. And when you're leaving, Laura, everything looked fantastic. Don't forget to tell your awesome friends about us. We're trying to grow our practice. We'll see you in 6 months. I'm not taking 12 minutes with you, but then the next patient, I got to go through finances and everything else. So we take a look at the total number of encounters per hour divided by the front desk to come up with a number that I feel like I'm comfortable with. Now, all that being said, going back to your philosophy, are you a Ritz Carlton or Motel 6? Right? So it's about that overall experience. If I'm a lot of insurance or maybe even Medicaid, if you will, I'm going to have a lot more turn and burn, but I'm not going to be handing out cookies and coffee. Right?
Mhm.
Where if I'm that Ritz Carlton experience, or if I'm the top of the cruise line where I've got one person for every 40 guests versus Carnival where I got one staff member for every 100 guests, you've got to look at what is the service you're trying to provide along with the fees, along with everything else so that you can accommodate it. But all thing being said, when it comes down to phones, you're still missing calls if you're not tracking and you're not staffed properly.
So that's gonna be my next thing is, do you have any metrics or thoughts from the offices you consult about when the phones are busiest, how we staff for that, hours you recommend? I mean, we are, starting to look at AI, and AI can handle overflow calls, weekend calls, and I think that's why you and I are most excited about AI is because there's the opportunity now to finally not miss calls. But for where we are currently, do you have any thoughts around metrics on that?
Not that I could put a specific number on, but here's what I hear. And it's just like scheduling. My busiest time for the offices are the first 2 hours of the morning and the last 2 hours of the day. And I think
Mm,
that goes to everybody's personal schedule. I drop the kids off for school and then I can do all the things I need to do. Or after I pick them up or on my way to pick them up. So if I were to take an educated guess on 30 years of experience, last 2 hours of the day are the busiest. Now, that varies. If I'm in a downtown metro area, or let's say like I've got a office in a bank building, 32 stories, they're, on floor 12. They get calls all afternoon. Their most popular time is midday where all these kids want to come in and get their teeth cleaned in the afternoon. But I'm going to go back to the basics. Measure it. You can get these statistics from Mango Voice. You can get these statistics from your phone company. When is your phone ringing the best? You can talk to your front desk. When are we the busiest, and make sure.
mhm.
The other
Yep.
thing along those lines that we might want to take just a second to talk about is when do we pick up and when do we let it go to voicemail, right? Like first on phone. So I'm a big believer that if you're walking out of my office and I'm talking to you about a big case, you're more important than me picking up the phone at the moment if I'm a single person up front. I'm going to let it go to voicemail. I'm going to have my solid voicemail recording, right? And I'm going to take my chances. But the minute you walk out, I'm going to return that call within 2 or 3 minutes, right? Hey, Laura, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was currently with another patient, but how can I help you? So I want to make sure that I do that. You and I
That's
both.
actually part of the reason I'm glad we're doing this is because there's so many different philosophies and theories on this concept. And on that example, I would have to say I agree with you. There are many times though where you have a patient in front of you and the phone ring and then you have to make a judgment call. But one of the things I'm most excited about and the reason I'm with Mango Voice now is because we never really had a good solution to that scenario until now with AI. Because if we can train AI to be able to handle the phone calls for us, it's like I've cloned myself now, right?
Absolutely.
Versus letting it go to a really good recording and crossing our fingers that the patient leaves a voicemail.
Well, as you know, too, there's a lot of technology already, like caller ID within Dentrix, I can identify, or Dental Intel, I can identify who's calling. So if I know it's Anna Schwartz and Anna's always calls a question about her bill and I'm with the patient checking out, I can go ahead and stay with the patient. But if I see new patient potential or something like that that flags, then I got to look at it a little bit differently.
Right.
And,
Right.
a lot of this, like, who do I make a priority? You and I travel a lot. I'm at like 2,500 nights over the last 30 years with Marriott, but there was a couple situations where I've going to check into the hotel. I'm on my third flight, got through the car rental. I finally get to the hotel. It's 11 o'clock at night. I just want to check in, go to my room, right? And the phone rings, and there's one person at the front desk. They're picking up the phone, making a reservation for somebody who doesn't even plan on being there for weeks, or giving them directions or question about, it's like, just give me my damn key. So you got to make some priorities. But I will say that, when it comes to the phone, if I've got a patient walking out needing work, they are the priority. If I've already got a new patient who's calling in, they're the priority over the patient walking out. And I never put a patient on hold if I called you first. So if
Mm,
I called you and the phone rings, I can't put you on hold when I called you.
right.
And these are fundamental phone skills that we take the time to train teams on that are a small part of your big success,
Right.
right? You can't
Right.
underestimate how important phone skills are.
Right. So I'm going to wrap it up here. If you have a dentist who's watching this and they're like, okay, I have not put any attention on phones. I have not talked to my team. We really have just been doing whatever we think is right, or I trust the team to be doing it. What are just some last minute, besides, answering the phone with a good emotion and being friendly, any last minute tips of how to get started or better at phones and phone skills?
First thing I'd do is I'd get a report to figure out where and when I'm missing the calls. That'd be number one. As hard as it is for some people, I'd role play the simplest of things. Role play, you know, hey, Laura, I'm going to call you. Answer the phone. Tell me exactly, answer it as if this is a real patient. I'd role play that. And then I'd work to a dialogue that are comfortable for the person answering the phone, but also matches the doctor's philosophy. Right. And in that measure, the new patient conversions as best I can, like, how many new patients are we getting? What kind of feedback are we getting? That type of thing. That's where I would start.
Awesome, awesome. And so this is just one of many that I'm gonna bring Kelly in. I mean, you've been doing this for so long. You and your partner are amazing coaches and consultants. You're into the metrics and the numbers, but you're also real philosophy, real theory of how to do things. So I appreciate that. And we'll break this down in little segments because, as you can tell, Kelly and I can go off in a million directions. And so we stayed on track with phones. Thank you for spending some time with us today to talk about phones, Kelly.
My pleasure. And thank you for inviting us. And I'm excited with what Mango does.
Me too. So fingers crossed, we build these agents that are going to help us on phones. So thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
My pleasure.